Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail where you can, in turn, inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. I am your running host, Dean Thompson. It is time once again for more fun than ought to be legal. Joining me once again after recovering from being sick is Run for God founder Mitchell Hollis.
Thanks for having me, Dean. Yeah, I didn't have COVID, but I've got my annual sinus crud just
still a little bit hanging on, isn't it?
Yeah, I could still probably sing in the bass section of the gospel group, which is pretty cool. You know, it's funny, I get up in the mornings, and that's the one cool thing about having sinus congestion is I don't know what it is. First thing in the morning.
That deep voice.
And the shower, you know how stuff reverberates in the shower? My whole family can probably hear me just talking in the shower. But yeah, I wish I could keep that voice all year long. I like that deep voice, but yeah. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I read, I just got over being sick. I was sick for 2 weeks. I don't know that I've ever been sick 2 weeks in my whole life. Seriously.
Yeah.
Never. And then as I'm about to recover from this 2 weeks of being sick, I read this thing that says, if you got the COVID shot, then it was decreasing your immunity and making you more susceptible to get other sicknesses.
Awesome.
And I'm like, whoa, hey, wait a minute. And of course, I don't believe any of that. This is all conspiracy theory. I'm not advocating that that's true or anything like that, but it's like all of a sudden in my mind, I start to...
It all makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah.
Mine is strictly ragweed. If you live in the South, you know what ragweed is. It's that red flowery stuff that you see popping up in your yard in the fall, and it just wreaks havoc on my sinuses. So Sudafed is my friend this time of year.
All right. Hey, it's championship time of year, isn't it? It's we got a region championship in cross country next week. Mm-hmm. There's conference championships. There's state championships on the horizon.
Yeah.
It's this is a fun time of year, isn't it?
It sure is. Hey, before we get to that, let's talk about our sponsor for this week. Now, remember, we've had a few new sponsors come on here recently, and this being one of them. But if you have a business out there and you would like to support Run for God and allow us to support your business in return, you can send an email to runlanehollis@gmail.com. Lane will get you all the information on what we do and how it works, but you can shoot him an email. But this week's sponsor is Outer Elements Landscape and Design. Established in 2011, Outer Elements is a design-build landscape company servicing Northwest Georgia and the Chattanooga area, specializing in the latest techniques in landscape architecture and design. Outer Elements has the professional experience to develop a wide range of projects in both the commercial and residential sectors. From irrigation installation, hardscape construction, planning, and beyond, Outer Elements can help conceptualize any landscape project and make it into a reality. If you want to reach out to them, contact them at 678-445-1968 to connect with a passionate landscape architect. Those guys do magic.
Yeah.
We've used landscape architects several times in the past and build design companies, and it's amazing what they can do.
First-rate stuff.
Reach out to them.
Yeah. Nothing like seeing a nice, crisp, clean landscape.
Yeah, I'm about to do pine straw in my yard. And
Are you?
I love pine straw time of year because it's I don't know, it makes it look like a new house.
Yeah, it really does. It's cool. We had a Facebook post from this past week, and I wanted to share this one. It's from Todd O.C. Shoemaker. You may know that name if you are on that. Documentary is coming out, and here's his post. It says, our documentary Dead Man Running, the Todd Shoemaker story, won the Audience Choice Award last night at the Treasure Coast International Film Festival. Laura West Shoemaker and I are blessed to be surrounded by a wonderful team who helped turn our crazy beautiful journey into a documentary. We had a wonderful time at the festival. Great people and organizers. Congratulations to all the filmmakers. Keep sharing your stories. Jesus is good.
You know, I had a chance to Todd allowed us to preview this documentary. It hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
Even as of this recording, I don't think it comes out till
November 17th.
November 17th. But I watched it the other night with my family, and I texted Todd after, and I knew his story, but man, this documentary was powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
That story is how I heard his story. I heard his story, and of course, I tried to relay it to you, and obviously, I can't do it justice.
I mean, to say it's a modern day Job might be a stretch, but it's pretty darn close.
It's as close as I know
was
of.
it 17? How many years?
Yeah, so I think it was 17.
17 years
a
of
long
just
time.
one thing after another medically, and to see the faith that he had and constantly looking to Jesus. It's incredible. It'll give you cold chills. Yeah. And what about the Run for God product placement?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that was pretty cool to see a documentary that's winning these awards, and to see him sporting his Run for God gear the whole time. That was pretty awesome. But yeah, I encourage everybody listening, and I'm sure we'll put something out there on his behalf, because I just believe in the story, and I really want people to see it. So kind of stay tuned late November for something. We'll send something out and tell you how you can get that or watch that or go see that. Yeah,
and I think it's going to be available for free. So
oh, really?
I believe so. So we'll see how it goes in November. But one of the things about his story that really struck me was it makes you feel better about your own faith. Mm-hmm. Because you realize there were points, as much of a miracle as this whole story is, there were points along there where they had doubts. Even a guy as faithful as he was, and his wife, and how they always stayed focused in the right direction. There were moments in private where they were doubting, and I think that's so, because sometimes every time we doubt, we feel like I'm disrespecting God.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just not the case. And it's a great story. All of these things he went, like you said, none of these things he went through were just ordinary sicknesses. I mean, they were all major things, and he still has the Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Which, when he was diagnosed, they were told him that usually lived 5 to 8 years.
Which is true.
Right.
I mean, medically, statistically, that's true.
Right.
But he's defying all the statistics.
Yeah. Yeah, and how does he celebrate getting Parkinson's disease? He went skydiving. Yeah. Who does that?
Yeah.
Who does that, right? So anyway, it's a great documentary. You do need to check it out and check it out. I don't want to give the ending away, but I'm just going to tell you.
Yeah.
If you can listen to the ending, to the final part of Todd's story, and I say final, the final part hasn't been written, but the culmination of the miracle, if you can listen to that and not get a tear in your eye or jump for joy or something, then you got some things you need to work on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it led to a 30-minute conversation with our family, my wife and 2 kids, after that, just talking about, because we've talked about miracles in the past and how, so many miracles today they're explained away with modern medicine and things like that. And it was so cool that wasn't. I'm not going to give anything away, but that wasn't the case with Todd's story.
Yeah,
and you'll get it when you see it. But it was. There's no question that it was a modern day miracle
for sure.
What's happened to him
for sure.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling with anything, you need to see this film. If you're struggling with wondering why God allows bad things, I've got a stepson in the hospital right now who can't walk. You wonder, why does God let those things happen? Well, if you're wondering why, go see this film, and I think it'll make you feel better about seeing those things happen.
Sure.
Not that they're good things, but that God can make good things out of just about anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. We had a trivia question for last week. And I love this trivia question because this guy was one of my favorites back in the day when I was competitive in high school and college. And the question was, who holds the record for the most sub-4-minute miles? And then the follow-up question to that was, what other now defunct sport was he instrumental in forming? And Today you don't hear the name Steve Scott very much. Did you ever hear the name Steve Scott?
I've never heard this name Steve Scott.
Steve Scott was ubiquitous back in the 80s. He was just all over the place because he ran every big mile race there was. He was in it.
The only Scott I know from the 80s was Lindsey Scott.
Yeah. I remember that one too. Yeah. Buck Ballou to Lindsey Scott, right? Yeah. Steve Scott, he was an American. He ran 137 sub 4 minute miles.
Who's even come close to that? What is like second place?
Second place is it's close.
Really?
Yeah, it's like,
I would have thought it'd been like half of that.
No, it's fairly close. I think it's Nick Willis actually, who's still running today. And I'll talk about Nick here in a minute. But Steve Scott, did he go to Oregon or Stanford or Colorado or one of those big running schools? No, he went to the University of California, Irvine. I love a guy like that, right?
That's awesome.
That comes from a place like that where nobody expects you to come from. He set 3 American records outdoors. The last time was in 1982, and then he held the record for 26 years. Wow. That's how far ahead of his time he was. 26 years he held that record. But he also held the American indoor record for 24 years. So he was just 347 outdoors, 351 indoors were his best times. He was so consistent. You before a race would start, you would know within a second or two what Steve Scott was going to run. You just knew it because he was just like Timex. He was automatic. But he came through a time when the miler world was just replete with all these great milers. You had Seb Coe and Steve Ovett, Steve Cram, John Walker. You had Eamon Coughlin. You had all these guys who were just unbelievable milers. You could name maybe a couple of milers these days, 1,500-meter runners now. But back then, the mile was it.
We've talked about this before, but you're saying that he held the outdoor record for 26 years. So he ran 347 in the early 80s, and then somebody broke it in the early 2000s, mid-2000s. That's one of those distinct things that we talked about. I wonder if what was the difference in the variables outside the runner from then to now, the track surface, the shoes, all those things, and it's less stark when you see records broken 15 times over 26 years, but from 1982 to 2008, I guess, so much has changed outside of the runner.
Yeah,
that would make that possible.
Yeah.
And so, it really makes what he did back in 1982 even more impressive than I'm not taking anything away from the record broken in 2008.
Sure.
That's not what I'm doing.
Alan Webb's a great runner.
Exactly. But I would like to know, I would like to see the track he ran on and the shoes he was running in and just the everything around. Nowadays you look in the Olympics and they even have a pace. What is that thing they have?
Yeah, that pace light.
Yeah. He didn't have that back then.
No, gosh, no.
Do you know what the track surface was back then?
Yeah, back then they had, this was before Mondo, but it was, I think it was called Chevron 440 back then. It was a good surface.
Yeah.
It was a good surface. It wasn't it wasn't like an asphalt track or a dirt track or anything like that. He had some pretty good equipment.
Yeah.
But certainly, you're absolutely right. There's just so much better tracks now. We know that. We know that the tracks have contributed to faster times. And so, what? Ultimately, the question is, what could Steve Scott have run today if he was around today?
Yeah, that's kind of my point.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but good guy. Just a great guy as well. And just Nick Willis I think he is the one that has the second most sub 4 minute miles. But Nick Willis did something Steve Scott didn't do. Nick Willis this past year ran a sub 4 minute mile for the 19th year in a row. Which is the record for a number of years in a row. Steve Scott did it 17 years in a row.
Wow.
So Nick Willis is still on the streak. He still has, I don't know if that was 21 or 20. He's on the streak, though. He still has the opportunity to extend that streak to 20 years, which is just crazy to think about. So, But he also helped invent something else, and this was an interesting sport, and the sport was called speed golf. Have you ever heard of it?
I've played it, but not because of that. I used to work at a golf course in high school, and we actually played two types of golf that you would be proud of. We played speed golf.
Yeah.
Where we would aggregate the time and the score. This is when it would be like a rain day and nobody was there and all the employees would go out. But we also played cross-country golf.
Yeah?
We would tee off on number 1, going to number 1 tee box, going to 10 green, 11 tee box, going to 1 green. And you can imagine it was, I mean, our scores were like 300.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I mean, I played that, but I didn't know it was actually a thing at one time.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty interesting. And he held the world record at one point in time for best score. And you would take the amount of time it takes to play, and you would add up the number of strokes, and you would add up your score, like the number of minutes. And I think I read where he played a full round of golf in like 35 minutes.
18 holes?
And shot 78.
That's hard to believe.
Isn't that crazy?
Because you can't carry a whole bag of clubs.
Well, he doesn't carry a bag. They carry like 2 clubs. They don't have all the clubs.
So like
I don't even know what they carry.
7-iron and a putter or something.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Using your putter as a driver.
But the idea that he scored a 78 without a full set of clubs is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was a pretty good golfer back in the day, and
the 35-minute time, I'm not positive about that. I'm not sure exactly how long it was, but I do remember that.
That's very hard to believe.
I do remember the 78. I'm 100% certain the 78 is right, but the 35 minutes is a
average
guess.
golf 18 holes is 7,000 yards.
Well, it is today.
Okay.
You know,
well, even then, I mean.
Yeah, now I don't know what tees they
6,
played
000,
from.
5,
I mean, yeah, it could have been a 5,500.
I would say it would be more than a 5K.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
at least at minimum.
Yeah, and that sounds reasonable if it's a 5K, right? No,
you got all that hit. You got 78 strokes.
But he's a 13.5-minute 5K runner.
Well, that's true.
So,
well, there's that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it looks like the sport is now pretty much defunct. People don't do it anymore. People probably do it for fun, like in the circumstances you're talking about. But I'll bet you it was really hard to get golf course. I bet that's why the sport went away. Because what golf course wants to let people go out on their golf course and do that, right?
They could get a lot more people through if they did that.
Well, that's true.
Of course, I'm sure you destroy the greens when you're running up and
surely
twisting.
Yeah. And I just think about the etiquette on a golf course. Where people are trying to be proper. And,
this was more the Happy Gilmore approach.
Right. Exactly.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. That's some fun. Love these trivia questions.
Yeah. All right, so we've been talking about something. We've been banging the drum for several weeks now on coaching the Marathon Challenge. If you're out there and you've been part of the Marathon Challenge this year, or you've been kind of watching from a distance, we want you to get involved January of next year. But we've got something new now. I'm blown away. I wasn't on the podcast last week. I wasn't feeling that good. Lane filled in, but I wanted to talk about the response we've gotten to adding a walkers division starting this January. I'm blown away with the response, and I guess you got the email last night from Val. I'm just blown away at how many people. We kind of thought that, just based on the comments we've gotten through the years. I think it's going to be a game changer, and I think it's going to be really cool. So many people are excited for us to take these two groups of people and put them together. Because, like I said, I think I sent an email out. I said, what is really the difference between a walker and a runner? A runner, 2 feet come off the ground. And a walker, 1 foot's always on the ground. That's the only difference when you really get down to it.
Yep.
And so people are excited. We've had people come back that we haven't heard from in several years. Mary Lou out in Las Vegas sent us a message and said, I really tried the running thing. I just, couldn't make it happen, but I'm so excited to hear that y'all are doing this. And it's reinvigorated some. Some have joined because of it. I saw a message last night that a lady joined simply because we're adding a walkers division now. So we're going to join these two worlds. of walkers and runners. But with that said, we still need coaches, facilitators, instructors, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
We've made it easy. You know, you're going to play a video once a week for a group of people in your community, and then you're going to go out and do your workouts together or separate. You're going to watch the video. You're going to talk about it. We're going to give you plenty of content to talk about. You don't have to do as much teaching as you have in the past. If you want to, that's still great. Or you can pop a video in and say, what'd you think when the video's over? When you say, what'd you think to a group of 10 people, you're going to get a lot of – there's going to be a 30-minute conversation after. It may be about how bad you and I did on the video, but there's going to be conversation. Yeah. So, but we're excited. So what do we need you to do? If you're not a member of Run Club, number one, join Run Club. Go to the coaching tab and learn about what you can do to become a coach. It's really simple. You can literally stake your flag in your community on an interactive map that we have, and be ready to get started this January. It's going to be incredible. Our goal is 10,000 people. You and I can't do that by ourselves.
No, we can't.
But with people dotted all over this country, all over the world, who say, yeah, I'll do this. I'll find 10, 15, 20 people in my community. We can make that happen pretty easily.
Let me encourage a couple of things from an email that I just recently got. First of all, if you are going to start a class, make sure you get on there and you put that pin in your town.
That way we know where you're at and who you are, so we can correspond with you.
And so that other people can find you. Because what happened was, in this case, was I had a lady who emailed me and said that her church was not going to allow them to do the class in the church. Mm-hmm. Now, every once in a while we get that, and it's sad, and it's I don't understand it, but it's church. Yeah. You know, the church has to do things.
We don't know the reasons.
Yeah. But let me say this: if you're in a church and you went to the leadership of the church, you said, "I want to do this Run for God group," and they said, "Well, you know, let's do that next year. We don't really have space for it this year." There's other places we can have a group, right? You don't have to have a church to have a group. Now, you can. A lot of times, the churches will allow you to advertise it at the church and have it at the YMCA, at somebody's home.
If it's a group of friends, do it at your home.
Yeah, it could be anywhere. So don't limit yourself to thinking that the only way you can do it is in the church.
Really, all you need is a TV or a computer, access to the internet.
That's it.
And you watch the video, and then you sit around, you have a conversation, you go work out. It really is that simple.
It is.
Some coaches are much more elaborate in that, and that is really cool to see that.
We're talking to you, Darren Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, they do a great job but it can be as simple as, all right, me and 6 of my friends, let's gather around this computer at the local park, and let's watch the video, let's talk about it, let's pray about it, and let's go run.
Yeah.
It really is that simple. We don't think you've got to complicate it.
That's right.
Because you don't.
That's right.
You get up early before the kids for your morning workout.
Good morning. Wake up to a brand new day.
Spend some time studying or reading your devotion. And pick up the kids each afternoon. Whatever the moment, J Radio has you covered. Get your account at jradio.com and download the app in your app store. J Radio, music for every moment.
Okay, we are back, and we want to hear your story. We've talked about this a number of times. We're going to keep beating this drum that we want to hear your story. We have heard from some of you, but there's so many of you out there who have great stories, and you're not sharing them with us. And I don't understand that. So go to runforgod.com and share your story with us so that we can share it right here, right?
Yeah.
There are people out there who are going through the same circumstances you were who need to hear about how you overcame those circumstances. And they can't hear that if you don't write it.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So get busy on it.
Somebody needs to hear your story.
That's right. That's right. Well, are you worried about being faster?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
not so much nowadays.
Yeah, not so much. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily bad. Mm-mm. It's not bad to want to be faster. It's not bad to not care if you're faster,
sure.
Right? Neither one. But Sometimes God has other plans. And in this case, we have a story from Natalie Tillett from Wiley, Texas, it's called Running Towards Intention, and it kind of talks about that. I had been a loyal smoker for 12 plus years, only quitting while I was pregnant and or nursing one of my 3 children. Smoking was my best friend, stress reliever, and number one go-to helper. I loved it. Period. You see, I had believed in Jesus since I was little and knew of his love, but wasn't very good at the personal relationship part or surrendering my life to his will. It was more like a general belief instead of a way to live my life. Like most, I always tried to fix things myself. Me and my best friend, the cancer stick. Oh, how a tiny little piece of rolled up plant can ruin every aspect of your being. Honestly, it completely takes over your life. You can't go anywhere, do anything, or let anything happen at all unless your pack of cigarettes is with you. How exhausting. Now that I've quit, I can fully realize how exhausting it was. Do you know how tiring it is to hide a stinky habit that you fear would make people look down upon you? Plus, I was constantly searching for something that always seemed to be missing. What? I wasn't sure of, but I always felt a void. I felt like I was a good person, consistently trying to do the right thing and always trying to help others, etc. So why didn't I feel good about my life or myself? Well, I know now that it was because I was looking to smoking to calm my nerves, to rescue my stress, to fix my bad day or hour or minute, when all I really needed to do was to look to Jesus as my healer and stress reliever and friend, to ask for help from the one who could handle anything. He had tugged on my heart long enough, and I finally decided to quit. I began every single day before my feet even hit the floor praying, God, please take this habit from me. Take away every urge to smoke. Please take it from my mind before I even try to think about it. Every day, every 4 hours, sometimes every 2, and only through Christ have I quit for good. You know the saying, Jesus loves you right where you are. He just loves you too much to leave you there. Well, that's where the running thing comes in. Being lifted of such a weight of addiction eventually was amazing. I had energy, a newfound clarity of my thoughts that I didn't even realize was fogged by the smoke. The more I leaned on him, the more I began to feel like I needed to show God how thankful I was that he rescued me from my own self-destruction. I had so clearly abused the body that he gave me, and I knew I needed to show him my gratitude. So I laced up my shoes, uploaded a 5K app, and started training. I figured if I could quit smoking with him, I could run 3 miles with him too. Now let me just say, quitting smoking was hard. But running with consistency and perseverance is too. I used my training as a time to worship. I focused my mind on rebuilding what I had torn down with selfishness and active response of his grace given to me. And he met me right there in the midst of it all. So faithful, so true, pouring out his promise to never leave. Humbling, to say the least. I'm sure I looked like a fool to some. You should have seen me the day my legs hurt more than my lungs. I was running down the street with tears in my eyes and my hands raised like Rocky. Oh, what a day. A simple victory as a gift to keep me going. 14 weeks after I began, I ran my first 5K. Words can't describe my emotions that day, but as we all know, life gets busy, and being a wife and a mother, it's way too easy to put my needs and wants off until everyone else is taken care of. So there went my training into the waiting bin. Fast forward 5 months, and there my running sits, still in the waiting bin. Thanks to some devoted friends, I eventually decided to join our church's Run for God group. I am now running consistently and love that I have a group of people who run after God's heart right alongside me. What God has shown me through running is that it's very similar to my everyday walk with Him. I started running to worship and show appreciation. The business of life kept getting in the way because the enemy wants to distract me and knock me down in my quest for the finish line. Unless I stay focused, I'm sure to fail. The enemy will make sure of that. When I'm running, I have to keep my focus on Christ, to relieve my stress, to comfort my pains, to be with me to the end. The same is true with my daily relationship with Jesus. I have to intentionally and earnestly seek His face and ask for His guidance in order to be successful in what He has planned for me in life. I also have to be willing to step into the unknown, however painful it may be, with faith, to put action to my words of praise. Each day that I choose not to seek Him is one more day I miss out on something great, some kind of step forward towards the finish line. Most often, the greatest rewards in life come out of the most painful experiences we have. Who am I to wince at that, knowing what Jesus endured for us? Instead, I choose to step towards the resistance, hoping to learn something new with each new experience. That's pretty good. She shared a poem as well in this, but I'm going to save that for the end of this podcast.
All right.
So we'll listen to her poem. But for some who have never smoked, and me being one of those, I never smoked. It's hard to understand the smoking thing. Mm-hmm. But now you understand the smoking thing.
I do. Yeah, and I started smoking when I was, 17 years old, and I quit the month before the first Run for God class. And I could just so relate. And this, we're talking about smoking here, but this can go for many things in our life that you can relate to.
Yeah.
You know, things that get a hold of our life, and it's like we can't function without them. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember, I know what she's talking about. I remember I wouldn't go to bed if I had smoked my last cigarette before going to bed. I wouldn't go to bed without going to buy another pack.
Yeah.
And it was like a security, something you're dependent on, which is not good. You know, people ask the question, is smoking a sin? Well, I don't really think the act of smoking a cigarette is necessarily a sin, but it's what it does to you.
Right.
That can lead to sin. I became dependent on something that wasn't Christ.
Right.
And it kind of began to control my life. And I'll never forget, for a couple years before I actually quit, I tried all the things. I tried the pill, the patch, the gum, cold turkey. I tried all of it. But what I realized, looking back now, is I really didn't want to, because I liked smoking, but my head knowledge was saying I needed to quit, so I was looking for something to do it for me. And until you really get to the point where you say, okay, I'm done, you can't break anything like that. And I'll never forget, and I'm being pretty transparent here, I've been doing that a lot lately, but I'll never forget, I was preparing for that first Run for God class. I was that crazy person that I started running before I quit smoking. Yeah. I did it backwards of what most people do. I mean, honestly, to this day, my fastest marathon ever that I've ever run, I smoked a cigarette right after it. Now, that's going to sound crazy, but it's true. And I'm not saying that in any way other than to say that that's where I was.
Right.
And I'll never forget, I was preparing for the first Run for God class. And God really just convicted my heart.
Yeah.
And said, you can't be doing this and teaching a Run for God class, because at that point I am stepping into sin where I don't know what stumbling block that could cause for people that would know.
Right.
And so I'll never forget, I laid down a half-smoked pack and never touched him again.
Wow.
And it's because I leaned on God at that point. I didn't lean on a patch, a pill, chewing gum. I didn't lean on all that. It was leaning on God, saying, this is what you need to do. And thank God I listened. And, I could just totally relate to her.
Yeah, and if there's people out there right now who have that thing that controls them, they're listening to this, and you just hit on the key.
Well, and she said that everybody around her could see it.
Yeah.
And you know what really hit me when I read that is I think we all have something.
Yeah.
And we all have something that I'm about to name, and everybody around us doesn't see it because they have the same problem. And we've talked about this before, but it's our cell phones.
Yeah.
It is our cell phones, that thing now, and the reason everybody around us is not seeing it is because everybody around us has it. You know, I'm convicted a lot about my phone.
Yeah.
And I got tickled that there's a guy building a fence for us right now on a project that we're working on. And I thought he was so mad yesterday morning, but I thought it was so awesome. He was late getting to the job because he had to go to the cell phone store because his phone was turned off because it was too old.
Oh, wow.
It was like 2G or whatever that means.
Yeah.
And they had been warning him, you need to get a new phone because it's about to be completely antiquated, out of date. And they shut his phone off because it was too old, and he had to go get a new phone. I just thought, maybe he's on to something. The phone isn't, it's just a tool for him instead of, we all feel like, I'm in the same boat. I do this exact thing. So I'm not, we see that new iPhone 13, which I don't have. I'll put that out there, but I'll be honest, I'm like,
but you want one.
That's a pretty cool phone.
Yeah, you'd like to have one.
It takes a 28 meg picture or whatever, like we need any better pictures on our phones. But I think we've all got that.
We had something just yesterday. I was talking with somebody in our administration at the athletic building at Dalton State College, and they had just had the first basketball game of the year the night before. And there were people that were angry, really angry, and here's why. The new software they're using for tickets, what it does is it puts a ticket on your phone. Mm-hmm. Either that or when you print the tickets out, it prints out an entire sheet for each game. And so one of the guys was like, you people owe me for all the paper I had to print out for all these tickets. It's like, well, you could use your phone, but then on the flip side of that, you're thinking, well, there's somebody who's not relying on their phone, right?
Which is awesome, I think.
Yeah, but so many of us would go, oh, that's cool. I can put the ticket on my phone, and this is awesome, and it is pretty cool, and you save paper. You don't, there's an efficiency to it,
right?
And that's how we. But
to what end?
That's how we justify everything, right? There's an efficiency to me having my phone and all the things I can do with my phone. Yeah. Look, I've got notes on my phone where I made notes of something that I will remember later that I wouldn't have remembered had I not had my phone with me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
we do it, but where's the line?
Yeah.
And we're kind of diving off into
we are
no man's land here. But to the point is, we all have that thing that we need to pay more attention to.
For sure. For sure.
That's all I'm saying.
Yep. Scripture, Hebrews 12, 1-3. Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. I can't believe I have to read that as many times as we've gone through this. But I'm not a good, me, I'm not a good memorizer anyway. But
you know what hit me about this verse? It's funny, we talked about this before, how you read a verse a different time. What really stuck out to me this morning when I was reading this, and we actually have the same verse in our challenge episode that we're going to be doing later today, is the word wait. It doesn't say, let us lay aside every sin which so easily ensnares us. The writer of Hebrews said, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. Those are not mutually exclusive. So what is weight?
It's those cigarettes.
Weight can be a lot of things that aren't in and of themselves fall into the sin category. Mm-hmm. Cigarettes, we just talked about. Now, some may argue that smoking a cigarette is a sin, and we're not going to debate that on here. Yeah. But let's running.
Right.
Running is for sure not a sin, but it can fall into that sin category if you let it consume your life, which is where this ministry started.
Being in debt.
Being in debt
Could
can consume your life. You know, there's so many things that are fall into that weight category, and what he's saying here is understand what your weights are, because they can turn into church. As weird as that may sound, you may be really active and really involved in your church. That can become a weight in your life, and that may sound strange, but you can become so involved in the things of your church that you miss what the church is there for.
Yeah.
You want to be on every committee and volunteer with everything, and that can become a weight. And I think that's where the writer of Hebrews is warning us. You know, it's not just sin.
Yeah.
It's the weights. It's the things that weigh you down and pull your attention away from the gospel.
Yeah, that's great insight. I'd never thought about that before. One of the other things that I was looking at here was that this of course, this is talking about examples in the Bible, right? That we have these examples to look around at, and we've talked about that before, and we should be emulating those examples. You know, it works that way with running too. You know, very often people tell us about how they did the 5K challenge, and it inspired somebody else to do the 5K challenge. Your first class, 24 people, and the second class, 200 people. They were all watching. There are examples out there that let us know that we can do things, right? Just like these heroes of the faith showed us that we can do things. And the Scripture, more broadly, the Bible is full of people of all ages, all abilities, all different backgrounds, normal people, noble people, even prostitutes in the Bible who God is using to do great things. And all of those are great examples for us.
Yeah.
And all of those weights that you were talking about and the sins that we have, they don't have to hold us back. And that's a great scripture, but that's a great insight too. Romans 3:3-5. And not only that, but we also glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope. Now hope does not disappoint, because the love of God has been poured out in our hearts by the Holy Spirit who is given to us. That kind of builds on that last idea. Not only should we look back at people who have been faithful, we should see how they overcame things. We should know that they came up against these obstacles, and that we can do that too. We can overcome these things that are in our way, whether that's the smoking that Natalie's talking about in this story, or whatever else that you have, anger issues. I just brought up debt issues, things that we can do something with. And that's how, when in the end, we talked about Todd's story. In the end, Todd is saying, I have to give God the glory. And that's what's so awesome about overcoming these things is, in the end, the glory and tribulation that it talks about in this verse, that's what it is.
Well, and that's why I really love Todd's story. Again, be looking for something late November, because you've got to watch that. But excuse me, a few weeks ago we walked that half marathon, and then like 2 days later I ran with my brother. I was planning to walk, but my brother's a runner, and you got those brotherly rivals, and we were on vacation together, so I had to run with him. And after that, I was sore. I was really sore from that 13-mile walk, and then that 6-mile run that I did with my brother. And I remember sitting at a cabin that night. We were in Pigeon Forge, and I was so sore, and it was. That run and that walk was a tribulation in the endurance world. It was putting stress on ourselves. And you've heard me say this before. I love that. I love that being sore and you just know you did something. But I've so many times talked about how we can't connect that over to our faith for some reason. But Todd did.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Todd's story is so incredible, because not that he was just happy, but he basked in the glory of it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's happy about it.
Right.
I'm not happy about being sore, but it lets me know something. It lets me know that I did something physically. And when we go through those tough times, we know God's word says that it's gonna produce these things. It's gonna produce perseverance and character and hope. Well, if we believe that like we say we do, then we should sit back in the cabin and be glad that we were persecuted by that guy that come up and said something to us because of the T-shirt we're wearing, or we were ridiculed for whatever. We should look at that the same way, knowing that that's making us stronger. But so many times we can't connect those dots. But that's why I love Todd's story, because he did.
But in the midst of it, when you take both of these scriptures, and you put them together, you look back at Moses, for example, and you realize in the moment, while he was going through that tribulation, he didn't like it, right? It wasn't that he was embracing his role in what he was doing. He was doing what God told him to do. But it wasn't like he was going, man, I sure am glad that God has me having to face Pharaoh 10 times. You know, I mean,
exactly.
You know, that's not the case. Just like in our tribulations and the things that we go through, we're not supposed to face them and go, man, I'm so glad that I've got this thing staring me in the face. But in the end, by following God's plan, we know who Moses is today, and he did something unbelievable, and God used him in an unbelievable way, and he'll do the same for us. He did the same for Todd, right?
He did the same for everybody. And I'm not going to say just about everybody. He did the same for everybody you read about in Scripture.
That's right.
If they were obedient to him, we know the ends of all those stories.
That's right. That's right. Good point. Way to up me on that one. Good Lord.
Well,
how about some questions here? Is there something in your life that you are holding back from allowing God to control?
I mean, right off the bat, when I read this, I said pride, because it's still fresh on my mind. I think that's what led to the podcast a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
You know, I had been walking, and there was this pride that I'm a runner, but God worked that out, and He's there again. If we turn it over to Him, anything, whether it's pride or it's cigarettes or whatever it is, if you fully and wholeheartedly turn those things over to God, He'll work them out. It may not be in your time, but He'll for sure work them out. So I think pride has always been one that God has really worked on me.
Yeah, the hard thing with this one for me is we've all heard the joke about the guy who's in the flood, and he sends a truck, and then he sends a boat, and then he sends a helicopter, and the guy says God's gonna rescue me, and in the end the guy dies. He goes to heaven, and it's like, what happened? And the guy's like, I thought you were going to save me, God. And he said, well, I sent you a truck, a boat, and a helicopter. What more did you want?
Right.
It's hard to figure out where is our doing part. Where is the part that we have to do versus where is the part where God picks up? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think that's where we all struggle with, what is it that God is telling me to do? And of course, all this goes back to how close are we to God, and how well are we listening and hearing His voice. But I think that's where we all struggle from. We're not going to drive down the road and get out from behind the wheel of the car because God's got it, right?
Right.
We got to drive to wherever we're going. But we have to follow God's direction for where we're going.
Yeah.
And so where is that line?
We have to do the will of God, not think about the will of God. I mean, doing the will of God is a verb. It's an action. We have to do. God didn't transport telepathically Abraham to the promised land. He said, go and start walking. And Abraham started walking, not knowing where he was going. And that was, God doesn't call us to just think. He calls us to do things. Yeah. I mean, the clear
implication for that is God could have placed Abraham in the promised land.
Right.
But He did not.
Right.
Yeah. Another question. Do you actively seek His plan for your daily life? If so, how? If not, how can you start? I think it's interesting that you can ask this question in two ways. Do you seek his plan for your daily life, or do you seek his plan daily for your life? You see the difference between those things?
Yeah.
We talk about this in business, right? There's long-term and short-term planning. God has his eyes on both, right? God has his eyes on what I'm doing today, but he also has eyes on where am I headed for the future. With Abraham, God provided the things that Abraham needed on that journey, but he said, go in this direction, and I'm going to lead you day by day. So he had the long-term plan of his plan for his life, but then he also had a daily plan for his life. And I think I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, one feels like a once-in-a-while thing, and one is a daily dependence, which we're called to do both. I mean, we need to be in prayer, in word, every day, seeking daily guidance, because we always talk about the streetlights. Sometimes God will light up the next 3, and sometimes he's going to light up the one for tomorrow, and we've got to be okay with that.
Yeah. God could give us a month's worth of direction in 5 minutes if he wanted to.
And many times that will scare us off.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But I do, he obviously wants us to talk with him daily. So whether that's receiving direction or just being thankful, sometimes that's all we need, is to be thankful. And I know you always like to compare God's direction to a parent's direction. Yeah. And if we're going to figure out what God's will is for us, that's kind of how we have to look at him, right? He is our Father, and we have to look at him like he is a physical father, right? Who is steering us in the right directions. So, she asked this question, how can you start to do this? And here's the thing that we've talked about on here a number of times. It has to be intentional. You have to intentionally do that. I love YouTube. Obviously, people can watch this on YouTube, so that's one of the reasons. Right. But another reason is I remember having problems with a lawnmower one time, and I could not. I had a friend of mine who was way better at small engines than I was, looking at this lawnmower. We couldn't figure it out. We spent hours trying to figure out what was wrong with this lawnmower. We just couldn't figure it out. So finally, why I didn't do this earlier? Well, I do it a lot quicker these days after that incident. I went to YouTube, 5 minutes, found a video, cost me less than $1 to fix it, and it was done. And it's like, if we're plugged into God is our YouTube video, right? God will fix those things like that, just like he did for you with the cigarettes.
But we get caught in the trap of, I can do this myself.
That's right.
I can do this.
I
know how to fix engines, God. Yep. I've been there. Yep.
Got to go to the source of knowledge. In some cases, it's YouTube, but in life cases, it's God.
Yeah.
Just like with running, consistency and perseverance is key to being successful at developing a growing relationship with Jesus. How are you doing in both areas? How can one help the other?
Consistency and perseverance, I love this. I believe this is the biggest secret to becoming great at anything. We've talked about before, coaching is important. Training plans are important. Periodization in training is important, but nothing, and it's not even close, Dean, and I think you'll agree with this. Nothing is as important as consistency.
Amen.
If you take somebody that has the greatest training plan in all the world, and it's got all the right periodization, it's got all the pieces to it, that person is never going to be as fast if they don't do it consistently as the person who just goes out and runs 2 or 3 miles every day.
That's right.
It's not going to happen.
Yep.
And so that's where so many times we get caught up in the weeds and the details of whatever it is. We're talking about running here, but it could be how to have a closer walk with Christ.
Yeah.
Well, I need to do this Bible study. And if I do this Bible study, it's going to make me a better Christian. And all that may be true. But if you're not talking to God every day, it don't matter what Bible study you're doing.
Yeah.
if you're not having that consistent, edifying relationship daily with Christ, you're going to suffer.
It's amazing what a few minutes at a time can do. I remember one time there was a book. It was a classic book that I always wanted to read, but I didn't want to really take the time to read it. And so here's what I decided to do. I downloaded the book on my phone, and this is TMI, but I would read it in the bathroom. And in a few weeks, I read that book, the whole stinking book.
Yeah.
I read at just a few minutes at a time. And it was fascinating. It was a great book. I won't say what it was, but it was a great book. And it was a few minutes of time that I didn't even spend any time doing it.
Right.
And that's how important a few minutes at a time can be.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so many applications in everything that you do. You're in the building industry, obviously.
Right.
If you don't take everything step by step and do the little things first, if you don't prepare the ground right, what's going to happen to the structure?
It's going to fall down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's so
a good
important.
perspective.
Absolutely.
While you're working hard to keep your body in shape physically, the music you listen to while you run can help keep you in shape spiritually. We've partnered with J Radio to put together a group of running playlists by Dean, Lane, Holly, myself, and others that you hear here on the Run for God podcast. Plus, you can listen to a playlist put together by members of Run Club just like you. Check out the whole station of Run for God playlist at jradio.com and in the J Radio app.
All right, so we're back. I beat you to the punch again, didn't I,
you
dude?
did.
So we've had some requests for something, and I'm proud to say that as of right now, it's out. But the marathon gear, if you're watching the video, I'm wearing the marathon challenge hoodie.
Nice.
We have a lot of great comments about these hoodies. This time of year is about when I ask Holly and Gay, get me one of every color, because this is all I wear in the winter times.
You are a hoodie guy.
I love these hoodies. They're soft. They fit right. They hold up good because I literally wear one every day from about November 1 through April. But we've got the Couched Marathon gear back in stock, and it's in stock until November the 14th. The reason we put these on for a limited time, we put them up for sale for 3 weeks, and then we print them all. So everything is freshly printed when you get it. It's not old inventory. And so you've got from now until November the 14th. That's about 2 more weeks from today. Go online, get yours. You can get the combo pack with the T-shirt, the hoodie, and the hat, or you can get it all separate. But everybody loves this gear, so we've put it back up for sale again. So go in there and check it out and get yours.
I guess I need to get some.
Yeah,
You
missed the. Well, 2 weeks ago, I was talking about these cool jackets that are coming out, and I find out that you and Lane have had one for like a year. So
Well, I guess that makes sense then.
Yeah, so payback now.
Oh my goodness! All right. Well, no marathon majors this past week.
No.
You know, we had all that excitement with all those marathon majors. But have you seen what Shalane Flanagan is doing?
I just recently heard about that. Yeah.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
I think that's so awesome. And I watched a workout. I can't even remember now who I was watching. I was watching a workout. I know you got to be a running geek to watch people do workouts on
You and
YouTube.
Lane.
But I was watching somebody do a workout, and Shalane was running with them. So I think it was Gwen Jorgensen.
Probably they're buddies, I think.
Yeah. And Shalane would just jump in. She was doing like mile repeats, and Shalane would just jump in and run a couple of 4:55 miles just for fun.
Yeah.
And we're seeing clearly that she's still in really, really good shape, right? Because she has run 4 to this date. She has run 4 of the marathon majors. She's run Berlin in 2:38, London in 2:35, Chicago in 2:47, and Boston the next day after Chicago in 2:40.
That's insane.
It's ridiculous.
And she's retired.
Yeah.
This is a retired runner.
She's just doing this all for fun.
For fun.
Yeah. So she still has Tokyo and New York City. Her goal was to be under 3 hours for each of these marathons, but it sure looks like she's going to be under 250 for all of these marathons, which is just downright
Are Tokyo and New
impressive.
York City harder, or are they about the same?
New York City's tough.
Yeah.
New York City's a tough marathon and not a very fast course. Tokyo's pretty fast, so she won't have any problem at Tokyo. New York City, but New York City is New York City. You got so many people there. Yeah. She's won New York City in the past, and so she's a kind of a celebrity there. She's going to be
just a few years ago, didn't she?
Yeah. She's going to be buoyed by all of that excitement of being there. So she's not going to have any problem with New York City, I don't think, just because of that. So I just can't imagine running a marathon one day and then coming back the next day to run another one, and then and Boston at that. Boston's a tough marathon.
Yeah,
it's not a slow course per se, but it's a tough course. It's really, really tough on your body, and then to run it 7 minutes faster.
Yeah.
And that 7 minutes faster was 8 minutes faster than I've ever run Boston.
Yeah.
So she really made me look bad. I go out and I'm concerned the day before. I'm putting my legs up and trying to be as ready as I can for the race. She's running a marathon.
Yeah.
And then dusting me. I think it's cool to see a former, kind of maybe not so former pro athlete doing something like this. Yeah. It's like remember Ryan Hall when he ran 7 continents, marathon on 7 continents in 7 days.
And to hear him talk about that.
Yeah.
That was pretty rough on him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because he didn't train for it.
Right. Yeah.
Now, Dean Karnazes did the 50 states in 50 days, and to hear him talk about that was pretty, well, you can imagine, 50 days.
Yeah, that would be tough.
Yeah.
But have you heard what Ryan's training for right now?
What's he trying?
I'm going to say it like I thought it was, and I was corrected by Lane. He's planning to do a 500-pound deadlift. Ryan is bulked up. He's basically a bodybuilder at this point. He's planning to do a 500-pound deadlift and go straight into a sub 5 minute mile. But I was corrected by Lane into what he's actually doing. He's doing a 500-pound deadlift and a mile in under 5 minutes.
Holy smokes.
So a 500-pound deadlift, it's not something you can just pick up and drop down in 2 seconds. It's going to take several seconds because 500 pounds is a lot of weight. Even for Ryan Hall, as big as he is, that's pushing the max of what he's able to deadlift. So it takes a little while to get that up and down and then take off for a mile and do it all in under 5 minutes.
Wow.
That's going to be pretty interesting to watch. And I think he's getting pretty close. He hasn't set a date that he's doing it. I think he's kind of seeing where he's at and he's been doing a lot of crazy things like doing the farmer's carries. Have you seen that?
No.
The big, I think they're 8-gallon water jugs. They're like 8 gallons, so like 40 pounds in each hand. And he's carrying them up like mountains and stuff. I actually did this, not trying to do it. Some property we have, I carried a bag of grass seed in one hand and I don't remember what it was in the other hand. And I had to walk like a quarter of a mile. That's hard to do.
Yes.
Carrying something heavy in each hand, and he's doing mountains and all kind of stuff. So that'll be interesting to watch. I think it has been done before. Lane's told me it's been done before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, that surprises me that it's been done before.
Yeah, I forget who Lane said it was.
Probably one of those CrossFit guys. One of those.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was a name that I knew.
Yeah.
But Lane's been following it pretty close, and so that'd be interesting to watch. 500-pound deadlift and a mile in under 5 minutes.
Wow, man. Yeah, I love the idea that Ryan Hall he's not taking himself too seriously and he's doing these fun things.
Yeah.
Because so many people when they're elite runners at one point in time, they get. I was talking to a friend of mine who was a great college athlete back. He's a year older than me, and he's a college coach now. And I was talking with him a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, he said, I don't know how you can still run like I can't even get out of bed without creaking, and he's talking about how hard it is, but he's not trying either, right?
Sure.
Because he's already done that, been there, done that, I guess, and doesn't want to try it. I think it's cool that guys are willing to still put themselves out there and not be that elite athlete.
Yeah.
And I just think that's cool. All right, it is time for Dean's Thoughts. That's a time when I share something that I've written about the intersection between running and faith. So what if you encountered an angry pack of wolves in the wild? What would you do? Well, here's what Ulysses S. Grant did and what he learned from it. This is called An Angry Pack of Wolves. Ulysses S. Grant tells a story in his memoir that has great application to our running and spiritual lives. He was traveling across Texas with a man named Benjamin when they heard an unearthly howling of wolves, as he put it. As they moved forward, it was clear that they were moving closer and closer to a large pack of the wild creatures. The high prairie grass prevented them from seeing the beast, but the sound indicated they were close. Grant was concerned about their entire party, horses and people, being devoured. He was not a hunter, but he was certain they were headed towards a dangerous situation. Benjamin, who was a hunter and had experience with wolves, didn't seem deterred at all and kept forging ahead. Grant indicated in his writing that the only reason he didn't turn around was that he lacked the moral courage to even speak up. Feeling less and less confident that Benjamin knew what he was doing, it would not have required any coercion on his part to convince Grant to turn around. Then Benjamin turned to Grant and asked, "How many wolves do you think there are?" He reasoned that the number must have been lower than he would reason, or they would not have continued forward. Grant answered, "About 20, very indifferently." Benjamin smiled and rode on. As they cleared the grass and saw the pack, there were only 2 of them. Those 2 wolves had made all the noise they had heard for the past 10 minutes all by themselves. Grant wrote, "I have often thought about this incident," and then he wrote, "There are always more of them before they are counted." Isn't that the way fear works? Uncertainty always paints a much more dire picture than the one that is unveiled in the end. Our worry is usually unjustified and overblown. Sometimes we're worrying about things being worse than they are, and sometimes there's just a speaker on the other side of the grass, and wolves are completely non-existent. The moral of the story is that we simply worry too much. The upcoming long run weighs heavy on our mind. Or we worry about the pain in our knee is going to derail our training for good. We worry so much that it affects other things we do. It gives us anxiety and it doesn't help. We may be right. The long run may be tough and the knee may be a problem. But the higher likelihood is that it won't be as bad as we think. The pack of wolves is almost always smaller than we think. Matthew 6:27 says, "Which of you by worrying can add 1 cubit to his stature?" Jesus is talking about the wild birds and the wildflowers and how God provides for them even though they don't even have the capacity for worry. They aren't paying any attention to the noise behind the brush. They don't care about the size of the pack of wolves. Jesus is explaining that worry is not productive because God is going to see that we get what we need. He may not provide all we want, but He will meet our needs. I remember the first time I ran up Heartbreak Hill in the Boston Marathon. I had heard so much about how scary it was that I was worried about it. I distinctly remember getting to the top and thinking, that was Heartbreak Hill? It was not nearly as bad as I had seen it in my mind. And that's the way things go more often than not. What is your pack of wolves? What are you worrying about that you shouldn't? Maybe you're worried about trying to get to the finish line of a race when you have 2 months of training in front of you first. Or maybe you're worried about the long run this weekend. Let me ask, how is that worry helping you? The truth is that it's not. If anything, you're making matters worse because there may be only 2 wolves when it feels like there are 20. Sure, there are still wolves to worry about, but the situation is far better than you thought it was.
That's a great story, Dean.
Had you ever heard that story?
I've never heard that story.
I never had either. I thought maybe being a hunter, maybe you had heard it.
No, I've never heard that. But it's so true.
There's always
It's
more
so
wolves
true.
when less wolves when they're counted.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
That. Yeah. He the way he phrased this in his memoir was he thought about this with political opposition. Obviously, being a president eventually, his thought was that their bark was always worse than the bite. That his political opposition was always really loud, but they couldn't do a whole lot to
And
it.
that he's comparing them to a pack of wolves.
A pack of
That's
wolves. Yeah.
Pretty well placed.
Yes.
Sorry, did I say that out loud?
That is for sure. I think I see the connection. And we all know worriers, right?
Mm-hmm.
People who tie themselves up in knots over things that they don't need to be tied up in knots.
I mean, I struggle here.
We've all done it.
I do it. I do it. And, this is where I think God places incredible spouses in our lives. My wife she's very good at walking me back from some ledges sometimes because, man, I'll run right up to ledges sometimes and I'll be just sky's falling, chicken little, But it's never as bad as we make it out to be in our mind.
But your worries are different than her worries because she's worried about something else that you're not worried about. Right?
That's true.
Yeah. We all have something different. And you're talking her back from her ledge.
Right.
Right? And it's funny how God puts us together with people like that, right?
For sure.
But I have a theory for these people. People who, and I'm talking about serial worriers. You're not a serial worrier. She's not a serial worrier. You have things we all have things we worry about. But there are people who that's the way they spend their lives. There's names that come to mind immediately. And everybody out there listening probably has somebody who's come to mind when I say it. And it may be you. But
if you can't think of anybody, it's probably you.
Yeah. But I've talked with these people. I've kind of tried to get inside their head and ask them. And here's the bottom line is people think that if I don't worry, then it means I don't care. And that's not true. But it's something that we worry about the way that if I'm not acting like the world's falling apart, then I'm not concerned about the world falling apart. And that you could have both because we have a reason to be confident in what we're doing, in who we are, in where we're headed. And of course, that's Jesus. And if we're relying on God, we should have that confidence, and we shouldn't have to worry about things. And the truth is, the things that you worry about, in the end, you realize I didn't need to worry about that.
But then there's common sense. Because I'm sitting here thinking about a few people I know. They don't worry about nothing.
Well,
I mean, nothing.
There's the other side.
It's like, I'm washed in the blood of Jesus. I'm not worried. Look, there's 3 sharks in the water right there. I'm not worried about it. And they'll just jump right in. There's common sense that we don't need to confuse for worry. Because I do know those people. It's like, and I wish I had a little bit more of them in me. But they don't worry about nothing.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's sharks in the water.
Yeah.
You're about to jump in with them. It's not the pack of wolves you can't see. It's 2 sharks that you can see right there.
Yeah, there they are.
And they're like,
they can't hurt me.
What is it that Paul says to I'm about to butcher this. To live is something, to die is gain.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's great to have that sentiment, but I don't want to die today. So we don't need to do what you're thinking about doing right now. We've all had that friend growing up.
That is true. That is true. What I fear is we don't worry enough about the thing that we need to worry about.
Exactly.
And of course, that's just lost people. I think that we talk about lost people, and we talk about how people need to come to a saving knowledge. Do we worry about them? Because that's a legitimate worry, right? Particularly people that we know are lost, the people that are maybe family members or friends that we've known for years. Those are the ones we should be worried about, right? And I guess maybe that's more of a worry. A concern,
A burden.
rather than a worry.
Yeah.
So here I found this. There's some things you can do if you're a worrier, from a website called whatchristianswantoknow.com. So here you go. Pray to stop worrying. Be thankful. Think on good things. The Holy Spirit can bring peace. Trust God's strength. Worry is not from God. And remember that God cares for you. And if you can pick, there's probably one of those we can all pick out. For me, I think the one thing that helps me from a worry standpoint is this worry is not from God. That really helps me. Whenever I do have a real big concern about something, I think about that, and it helps me.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, I think we've used it before, the term that faith and fear cannot coexist.
Yeah.
You know, one's going to push the other out.
Yep. That's a good way to put it.
If you've ever participated in any sport, you've probably met a great coach. Great coaches inspire us to do more than we ever thought possible. You can be the leader that helps others achieve things they never thought possible. You, yes, you have the ability and the opportunity to be that person. All you need is a heart to help people and the ability to follow a plan. The Run for God 5K Challenge will come ready to help you inspire those around you. The step-by-step guide will direct you how to plan, pray, and train people both physically and spiritually. You can help them become more fit in their health and in their walk with Christ. Share your passion. Go to runforgod.com to find out how to inspire others to accomplish big things.
All right, we're back. Have you ever run any ultras on a trail? Have you ever done that?
I haven't, no. I've ran a couple ultras, but not on the trail.
Yeah, the only ultra I ran 50 miles on my birthday one time for fun. So that's
and that was fun to watch.
That was it. Yeah, that was nice.
Because talk about no track, you hadn't trained for that.
Yeah. It was
you were running a lot, but
it was like the day I woke up the day before and thought, I think I'm going to try to run.
That's a good
Yeah.
idea. Yeah, I've had a few of those.
Yeah.
It's kind of like jumping in with those sharks. That's not a good idea, but we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. And just knowing how that felt and knowing that I'm not a trail runner. I just don't like running on trails. But most ultras these days are run on trails.
Yeah.
And so I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because trying to keep a course clear, for people on a road is hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I do want to do an ultra one day. And I think the one I want to do is the Key West 100 miler. It goes from, I don't know, somewhere south of Miami there down to
like Homestead to Key West.
Yeah. And I think that'd be a fun one to do. Now,
it'd have to be like in January.
Yeah, it's not. It's like in July.
Wow.
Yeah, it's at a bad time of year. But that just makes it that much bigger deal when you do it. Right? That's why I'm looking at it.
Sure.
My problem is I'm not patient enough to do an ultra. My thing is you feel so good when you start, and that's what got me in that 50 miles was I ran the first 25 at 8-minute pace because it felt easy. And I felt like I was trying to keep myself slower then.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I needed to be going much slower.
Yeah.
Than that. So yeah. And then forcing yourself to kind of take breaks and walk a little bit is obviously a good thing. People who do ultras, they know that. They do that. They have some kind of formula system. A lot of times they use. But then I look at, what was the guy's name here a few years ago? He ran the Boston Marathon, and he's an ultra marathoner. And I watched him tackle the 100K world record, and he missed it by like seconds. And his name is escaping me right now. But I watch him do that, and I'm thinking, well, he ran for 100K.
Yeah.
He didn't stop. Why do I need to stop?
Have you heard anything else about Kipchoge? You had mentioned in one of our later podcasts that he's kind of announced or made the statement that he would like to enter that world.
I haven't, but my gut tells me he's probably not done with the marathon yet.
Okay.
I mean, when you win the Olympics, you're probably thinking, I might have a little more gas in the tank.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we have a trivia question for this week. And this one's kind of a more general question. And I don't know that we've ever asked a question quite like this one, but I thought it would be fun to ask. So here is the question. What is VO2 max, and why is it important to being able to run faster?
It's a good one.
Yeah. You can put some thought in that question, too, and there's a lot of different ways you can put this. And I'll take anything that's in the ballpark. So
this one would be a good one for people to research, though.
Yeah.
Learn a little bit about VO2, because VO2 max is one of those terms that we've all heard, and a lot of people don't really know the significance of that.
Yeah. How do you write down the answer to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So send the answers to dean@runforgod.com. And the first person to send the answer to me will win a Run Club box.
Include your T-shirt size.
And your address.
And your address. And we will send you a really cool Run Club box.
That's right. So get on it. I had somebody who recently answered a trivia question who he was working like overnight or something, working odd hours. And he stayed up. He was like up all night. He saw the podcast drop. It's like he was like, I don't know, hitting refresh or something.
You got an answer at 12:01,
and he got on that podcast like ultra early. So there are some people doing that, but then sometimes I don't get an answer. I don't get an answer right away. Yeah. So it depends on the week. It's funny. I get a whole bunch like early Monday morning sometimes, and then sometimes I won't get any.
And just
until
so
Tuesday.
everyone knows, listening, most people don't know about the podcast dropping until Tuesday morning when they get the email. But the podcast actually comes out. Is it at midnight?
I'm not sure what
Monday
time.
morning, or it's sometimes during the night on Monday morning is when J Radio drops these. So that might help you get to the punch a little bit faster. Is these actually come out early in the wee hours Monday morning? So
right, it's the video link that we send out on Tuesday.
Right.
So,
right.
But the podcast's available. All right. Every week I share a reason why running is so awesome. And this week, my reason is out of town running. I was in Jacksonville, Florida this week. And, we stay in the same hotel every time we go down there. We go down there to the Mayo Clinic for Debbie. And I've been able to develop different routes over the time. And so I know that area around that hotel way better than somebody who's not a runner would. Because I've been all over it running in that area. And that's a cool reason to run when you're out of town. And then there's people watching. Because wherever you go, people are different than where you came from. And the people in Jacksonville are different from the people here. Now, I can almost tell you, in some cases, I can probably tell you what region I'm in based on the people I run by.
And how they react to you.
And how they react to me. Maybe a little bit of how they're dressed, how they carry themselves. But and I'll tell you what, the people in Jacksonville, props to Jacksonville, Florida, the people are so nice. Everybody I run by in Jacksonville, almost without fail, they'll raise a hand, they'll smile, they'll acknowledge me. And I thought one lady, I was running this past week, one lady, I thought she was going to trip over herself. She had headphones in, and so she couldn't hear me, but she saw me coming, and you could see she was kind of looking down and not looking at me until she saw me look at her. And I was fiddling with something at the time, and I got through just before we met, and our eyes met, and she was like, you could tell she didn't want to say it out. You know how somebody looks when they exaggerate their words, they don't say them, but that's what she did. She was like falling all over herself to say, "Hey." It was quite comical. I wish I'd had a video of it. If you're that lady and you're listening to this, I'm sorry for describing you that way, but people don't know who you are. Now, I've run in New Jersey as well.
Completely different reaction.
It's a whole different reaction there. Yeah. People look at me like I'm going to steal their wallet in New Jersey. They have the suspicious look on their face, like,
"Who's he running from?
What are you doing?"
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Now, again, there are some great places in New Jersey, and we know some really nice people from New Jersey. Not talking about people from New Jersey, but there is a different reaction when you're out running, for sure.
And they'll admit that.
Yeah. But anyway, I do love running out of town. At one time, I remember when I was in high school, I used to keep a paper log and a log book, and I used to write in the back of that book. I used to write the towns that I ran in. And I mean, I would probably run in 30 or 40 different towns every year. I would add that to each one of my log books. So kind of interesting to go back and look at that. Anyway. All right. We are down to our motivational thought of the week, and I made a promise earlier in this podcast. I said that I was going to share that poem from Natalie, and I thought, what more appropriate place to share the poem than in the motivational thought of the week? And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to share that poem from Natalie, and it's called Run. Today I choose to lace up my shoes, to meet you where you call, to strengthen my focus, step over that line, and open my hands to it all. I'll bring excuses, you'll set them free. To be with you today is all that I need. With each step I take, my tenacity grows. I'm running towards intention where your love overflows. Counting my breaths burning like fire, muscles scream out with seizing desire. It's there in that moment, you rescue my doubt, revive my objective, and force failure out. Somehow inadequate is no longer the truth. My ambition's restored, and I'm running with you. Your lungs are my lungs, and your feet are my feet. What once bestowed strife, now appealing to me. Oh, how I'm taken with your boundless grace, such humbling affection in seeking your face. Now here comes the finish line miles from the start, and each time I cross it, there's a change in my heart.
That's a great poem, Natalie.
Isn't that good?
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed that. So thank you for that, Natalie. And I'm sorry to split up your story and take that away from your story, but I thought it was so good we had to feature it.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right, everybody, you're doing great.
To our new group of Run Club members, the walkers out there. Welcome. It's going to be fun. Stay tuned. We're going to have more for you guys to come as we get near to the end of the year. But welcome to the club.
Amen. All right. Now, may God bless every step of every run. Go out there and shine your light.
Good job, Dean.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.